Hey guys, John Stargarian here. I'm going to talk briefly about Colby Covington versus Kamaru Usman. If you like the video, please like and subscribe, and I'll have more of these on UFC 245 coming this week. So basically, my feeling on this fight is there's a lot of value on Usman. I played him for 5 units at minus 165, which is a max bet for me. And I'd probably be willing to play him up to minus 220 or minus 230. I personally feel like he should be valued at about minus 300 or about 75%, which is considerably higher than the current line, which is, I think, minus 175 on 5 times. So basically, look, let me say first things first. I did tweet that I think Usman will smash Colby. And my initial write up, I wrote, I thought about minus 400. That might be a little bit strong, but I can't get below minus 300 to be honest. And look, I know minus 300 sounds steep, but when you actually think about it from a math perspective, it's 3 and 4 times. And I do think Covington can be competitive here, and I do think he can win this fight, say 1 and 4 times. I just struggled to see how he wins more than that. And for me, the problem for Colby is it's just where does he excel here? Where can he excel consistently? The thing is, both him and Usman have a very, very similar style. They're both heavy wrestle grapplers. They both throw high output. And that's basically, they both have great cardio and like to grind their opponents until they break. The problem for Covington is I just don't see where he's better. In fact, I'd argue Usman's better just about everywhere except for possibly the distance striking. At distance, Covington is pretty strong. I don't think he's particularly technical. He is hittable. We saw that in the Maia fight. Didn't really see it in the Lawler fight, but at the same time, Robbie wasn't really throwing anything back on him. Partially, I think, because of the threat the takedown posed, but also just because Lawler is kind of shot at this point. It was an impressive performance, but again, he wasn't really throwing anything back that could threaten Colby, so he could just keep going. But at any rate, when you throw the kind of output that Covington will throw at distance, that obviously puts you in an advantage. And if the fight was to take place at distance for a full 25 minutes, I do think I would slightly favor Colby. But it wouldn't be significant. So that's kind of my point. If this played out at range and just a pure kickboxing match for 25 minutes, I'd probably give Colby 55% edge at most. And the reason is, first of all, Usman's not super technical either, but he moves his head well, he's got good defensive striking, and he hits a lot harder, and that matters, especially given how hittable Covington is. And, there's a huge power chasm between the two. No, Usman's not out here knocking out everybody. But in reality, I also wonder how much the lack of knockouts are kind of a product of his fighting style. So, he's got 1 knockout and 3 knockdowns. But the guy spends so much time on top and attempting takedowns, there's really not a ton of time where he's in space to knock people out. And he's rocked a bunch of different opponents. So I do think his power is real. That said, again, if it played out at range for 25 minutes, I think we could expect Colby to throw more and likely land more. The question would be, there'd be a lot of variance though. So I'd give Colby about a 55% edge there. At the same time, I think Usman would land on him a lot and would have a chance to hurt him fairly frequently. But okay, so let's say we give Colby a range edge. The question is, what are the odds this actually plays out at range for that long? Obviously it will in fits and starts, but I just don't see it playing out there for a significant amount of time. And that's largely due to the style that Colby brings as a striker. He's not, like, if you take a guy, let's say like Wonderboy Thompson. Wonderboy circles off the cage as well as anybody, cuts angles as well as anybody. He's the epitome of a stick and move guy. And that kind of guy, with the kind of, wrestling credentials that Colby has, could really give someone like Usman major issues, because not only would they have the ability to stuff some takedowns, get up, but they'd be able to move the entire time and cause a lot more of the fight to be at range. But that's not really what Colby does, and there's really nothing in the tape that shows he's capable of fighting like that. Rather, Colby's a very, very linear fighter. So he likes to come forward, basically be on the front foot the entire time, throwing, back you up, and then throw against the cage. The problem is, as a linear fighter who can't stick and move, what happens when he can't back Usman up? Now, I do think he'll back him up here and there, but if Usman just decides to plant his feet, throw back, or clinch up, well, what's Covington going to do? I don't think he cuts angles well enough to just continue to move laterally, get against the cage and circle out. Like, he'll circle out here and there, but I don't think he can keep his striking effective by doing that. So basically, he has to be coming forward, and Usman has to accept a striking fight at range, and I just don't think that's going to happen. Again, it'll happen in fits and starts, but then once Usman clinches up, now they're in the clinch, and in the clinch, frankly, is where I see the biggest chasm in this fight. Usman's clinch work is really next level. He throws out vicious clinch strikes, and he will throw non-stop. If you look at his fight with Tyron Woodley, he landed 330 total strikes in that fight, I believe, a lot in the clinch, and just continued to work the body there. And that's going to happen here. So that's a problem, because I really believe every time it goes to the clinch, Colby's going to be getting outstruck there. And I think a lot, given how they're both grapplers who like to come forward and push a pace, I think we can safely assume a fair amount of this fight is going to take place there. And again, pretty much every clinch exchange, I'm going to favor Usman in. You know, Covington may land strikes here or there, but he really doesn't strike out of the clinch much. When he fought Rafael dos Anjos, he only landed 8 strikes out of the clinch, and huge portions of that fight were in the clinch. Conversely, Dos Anjos actually landed 32 strikes out of the clinch, and significant strikes, and actually hit Colby a lot from that position, and it actually won him the first round on 2 cards by doing that. So that's a huge edge for Usman. So then the next question is, well, in terms of the actual grappling and wrestling, you know, how is this going to go? And it's like, Usman has a 100% takedown defense, but he also hasn't been forced to defend many takedowns. And so, yeah, I do think Colby could take him down a couple times in this fight. Wouldn't shock me. But Colby's top control is not great as it is. Doesn't do a great job advancing position, and he doesn't really look to throw from up top. He's really he really focuses just on mat returning you. So basically, he takes you down. If you pop up, he takes you back down again, and this saps his opponents. And mat returning Usman, I just don't think it's going to happen. If you told me he landed 2, 3, even 4 takedowns over the course of 5 rounds, I wouldn't be shocked, but I would be shocked if he told me he landed 8, 10, 12 takedowns. And to work for those takedowns, he's going to have to go into the clinch, and I really believe the entire time he's working, even when Usman's against the fence, he's going to be eating shots, and likely heavy shots. And I also think Usman has a fair chance to reverse position in that position and then just tee off on him too. On the other side of things, Colby's got a 79% takedown defense. It's really good. He's obviously got great wrestling credentials, but we've seen him taken down a few times. RDA actually took him down 3 times in round 4 of their fight, and I do think Usman can get him down here. And again, I don't think Usman's going to get him down 12 times like he did RDA, but could he get him down 4 or 5 times? Yeah, I mean, I think so. Even maybe 2 or 3. He only got Woodley down 2 times, but Woodley's takedown defense is as good as it gets. And the question is then, can Usman hold top position? And I think he can. I don't think he can hold it like he has against everybody else. I doubt he can hold him down the way he held Woodley down. But I do think he could potentially hold him down for 1 minute to 2 minutes at a time. I think this assumption that Colby can just pop back up and scramble up to his feet is just not accurate. It's not that easy with the kind of weight and the kind of chest-to-chest pressure Usman puts on his opponents. He's incredibly good at advancing position off of takedowns too. So again, like, I think Colby will get back up, but I do think Usman can get significant top time here. And if you told me he got 8 to 10 minutes of top control over the course of the fight, maybe even a little bit more, I wouldn't be totally surprised by it. And I also wouldn't be totally surprised if he just holds him down, to be honest, and can hold him down for long periods of time. Well, I shouldn't say that. I would be surprised, but I do think it's within the range of possible outcomes. So, and the difference between the two, again, Usman's got better top control. He's more willing to advance position, and he puts ground and pound out like crazy. He's going to throw a ton of ground strikes. So, again, I have to favor Usman in the grappling. And so the question I had is, if we favor Usman if we acknowledge that it's going to be very difficult to keep the fight at range for lengthy periods of time, as I believe it will be, and that Usman's going to be at a significant advantage in the clinch and at least a moderate advantage wrestling, and at least you have to give him an advantage in the grappling. The question becomes, well, so how does Colby win this fight? And something I've seen suggested is maybe Usman's cardio isn't as good as Colby's. And yeah, Colby will push a very frenetic pace. He looks like he's expending more energy than Usman, but I'm just not sure there's a lot of evidence to suggest that Usman's cardio isn't great. Could he fade late and Colby maybe steal a round or 2 late? Sure, I mean, that's possible, and I've seen some people suggest this, and it's true. Usman really hasn't been forced to, face someone who can likely provide the kind of resistance Colby can face. The counter to that is, I don't think Colby's faced anybody who can do to him what Usman's going to do to him for much of this fight. It's great to show off that frenetic pace against everybody else, but he's really never been forced to be the nail, and I do think that that's going to be the case here for a lot of the fight. So the question is, yeah, we know Colby's cardio is great, but we've seen him slow down at times. He slowed down precipitously in round 4 of the RDA fight, and so I think the idea that he's necessarily going to have more left in the tank than Usman in rounds 4 and 5, they're just I'm not sure I believe it. It's not impossible. Like, sure, it is possible he could have more in the tank, and maybe Usman will gas himself like we've never seen him do. But I tweeted this out a little while ago. But if you look at Usman's output from rounds 4 and 5 against both Woodley and against RDA, he landed 230 total strikes, 6 takedowns, and 9 grappling advances. Now, people can say, oh, Woodley wasn't really giving him much resistance. But it's like a grappling heavy fight. That is incredibly energy sapping, like that was. And that whole fight was in the clinch pretty much. In the RDA fight, we saw how much resistance he was able to put up against Colby. And he was just suffocated for 5 rounds by Usman. And, Usman, we're saying he slowed down in 4 and 5 against those two. And that's his output. Well, okay, so that's his output there. So how far do we? It's not going to decrease to like a heavyweight level of gassed if he decreases against Colby. I still have to imagine he's going to put out at least decent output. So again, it's possible he gasses and Colby takes 4 and 5. I just don't think it's an outcome that can be relied on. For Colby to win this fight, he's going to have to at least steal a round or 2 early. I really believe that. Is it impossible? No. Like, I do think this fight will be competitive for stretches. I just ultimately think it won't be on the scorecard. Something in like the 49-46 variety. Like, I think Covington will, like I said, land a couple takedowns. He'll probably resist Usman's takedowns a bit, pop back up a couple times. He'll land some shots in exchanges. I have no doubt he'll do these things. I don't think it's going to look like Woodley, a really low output striker who, if he can't just stuff your takedowns and swing bombs at you, has nothing else to offer you. But I do think for the majority of the time, Usman's going to have clinch control time. He's going to be landing more shots in the clinch. He's going to be landing more shots on top than Covington will be landing. And like I said, even at range, the difference isn't significant enough to think that Colby could potentially, steal rounds. I mean, he could steal rounds, but it's hard to see him. It's very hard to see him consistently stealing rounds early in this fight. And I think that's what he's going to have to do. So again, I'd cap it at about 75% for Usman. So I think basically 1 in 4 times, maybe Covington fights the perfect fight, stops a couple takedowns, gets back up quick, lands a bit more output for, 2 of the first 3 rounds, and maybe steals a round late off Usman as he slows down. But I don't see it happening more than 1 in 4 times. Usman's tools are just, they're almost the same as Colby's, except they're just a little better everywhere. So it'll be a competitive fight. I just think Usman's got the advantage almost wherever this fight takes place. And like I said, maybe cardio will be, maybe I am underrating Colby's cardio and overrating Usman's. I just don't believe there's a lot in the tape to suggest that. So consequently, I'm pretty comfortable capping this at about Usman minus 300. And, so basically it's a 5-unit play. It's a max play. I mean, follow or fade. If you follow, good. I hope we make money together. If you fade, good luck. And, I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks. Bye.